Okay, I probably missed the solo back end. That activation is so annoying to not over squeeze and therefore overlap the star power phrase. Oh my god. That's crazy. I can't put those two together. Whoa. That's the first time I've ever hit that. Holy shit, man. Fuck me. That is such a shit miss. I am such a fucking delight. Watch me get this. I'm so fucking good at this goddamn video game. Thank you for another front-end overlap. Fuck you. Fuck you. Oh my god, one overlap front end frame. The fucking classic. Cool. I fucking suck at this act. Oh my god, that pressure was so intense. Fuck. 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 way that just happened again. Why me? Can somebody else just have some shit luck for once? Where? Was it the solo again? Oh my god! This is the hardest. I fucking choked the last act back end. This is so unbelievably motherfucking hard and exhausting. Oh my god. This is hell on earth. This is absolute torture beyond words that I can use to describe. I had to go for a crazy back end because I fucked up the front end. This is so bad. I am fried to my fucking soul. Oh my god, it's over! Yes! Fuck! Yes! It's over! Oh my god, it fucking happened! 5 hours! 5 motherfucking hours! Oh my god, it's over! No 408s. Oh my god, dude. I am honestly surprised that last act back end connected, especially without overstrumming for the 50th fucking time. The relief I feel at this moment is indescribable. It's like a wave just crashing over me. Seeing that 412 instead of 212 again. I don't know if this dethrones Madhouse just because that song is so fucked up with ticks on the first act specifically. But if... man, I don't know. This is beyond incredible. I can't believe I got it in this session, man. I should have stopped playing 2 to 3 hours ago. And, my god, I've just been in a fucking glazed, numb state for at least 2 to 3 hours. This is one of the craziest sessions of Guitar Hero that I've ever had in my life, because I could just feel myself getting better and better and closer, and that's usually not something that you experience in the moment. That's normally something, you know, pairing with what I was saying earlier that I should have got off 2 to 3 hours ago, because that's generally what happens. You play for a couple hours, you ingrain the timings, and then you come back and you're better. And for some reason, I just was not willing to let this go. I'm starving. It's been like 6 hours since I've eaten anything. I can't believe I pulled this off in this condition. This headache, fatigue, hunger. It's fucking over. Well, I say it's over, but there is still room to go crazy enough in this song. I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, that the, well, I'm gonna include it in the pre-roll, but the third act double is also possible. And I have hit it, and Lord knows I have gotten, honestly, way better than I ever expected myself to, and that I have any right to have gotten at hitting those yellow-blue chord front ends with extended hit window. Guess I'll go ahead and get into all the technical details for this song. So, obviously I made a few path adjustments, first, last, and second. The first act adjustment is entirely execution and convenience. As you no doubt can tell by that last act, the back ends of these first and last acts are just very, very annoying because of overstrums, and adjusting it to where it ended on a hopo was much better. Once I actually started to get the feel for that first act, it became just so much easier to deal with. Although, strangely, I was getting some, like, snapback on my strum bar a lot that would cause me to miss after hitting the blue hopo, and that was really annoying, even though I made sure to end on an up strum. And also, the front end activation, I think, is a little harder, but at the same time, it allows you to anchor yellow while getting the whammy for the first act, which, in my opinion, is a... I mean, you can do that and still use extended hit window on the first act, but the difference is you have to release both yellow and blue, like, immediately after strumming the first green, because it doesn't work, you know, extended hit window doesn't work on the next greens, it only works on the first one that you strum. So all things considered, I think that was a really good change, and it was something that I made this session, like a couple hours ago. Because the whole goal, like, from the very beginning when I thought about going for this, I was like, I'm going to have to get consistent with this first act to stand even the slightest chance at getting this. Thankfully that came together. Let's get into the more interesting second act. So what's going on with the second act is that because the chorus 1 leads into verse, it's either 1A or 2A, the tempo increases at the start of the verse, and throughout the chorus it's like 190, but it shoots up to 201 at the start of the chorus, and that on its own is not enough for me to like change my path or anything. Of course, I went into TAS with all this, and I discovered that it brought the normal chorus activation from a 2-frame window, which is, in my opinion, really not worth going for. They are 2-frame extended hit window activations are insanely difficult. 1 frame, I'm not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole. 2-frame is like on the very fringe of possible for realistic execution. So when I originally tested that a long time ago, because I was curious after the 443 first got done, whether or not this song was just dead as far as like human viability goes. And after testing just that, I only did the first one because I assumed that the first and second chorus, acts 2 and 3, would be the same, but they're not, and that's kind of weird on its own. But anyway, I looked at the slow here path, noticed that tempo change, and when I adjusted it, it brought that to a 4-frame window, which is like, I mean, it's definitely not, oh, this is twice as linear, this is twice as... It's like exponentially more doable. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, that act is still hard as fossilized Triceratops shit, as the good old AVGN once said, something along the lines of that. And there were times where I was like way too consistent than I should have been. I also say this because the front end activation is awkward as hell. Like, this is one of the only times that I've ever used my pinky for extended hit window, because it's, your weakest finger. And I think that actually honestly played a positive role in it, because it just delayed my fret timing, my quote-unquote note forming, to like this really just like sweet spot for some reason, which I've never experienced otherwise. But I just was not having any luck trying to move my middle finger down to yellow and then use my ring to activate blue. I kept early fretting, and so one of the runs I was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's just try it with the pinky, and I just found so much better success with it. Thankfully the back end, while the front end is incredibly obnoxious to execute, the back end is pretty decent, because it's just, it's the same fretting, which is something that I always look for in back ends on these kind of crazy activations. So yeah, that's about all to say about that one. I'm kind of surprised nobody ever, nobody ever documented trying that adjusted act, because I'm also surprised that the slow hair path doesn't like account for that kind of stuff, but whatever, it's just like a bot making like calculations, which I would think would make it more accurate, but it also doesn't like follow the exact game frame logic and shit, so whatever. Third act, like I said and have shown, hopefully, is possible, and for some reason, I don't think I've tested this multiple times, but it's a 3-frame window, which, is, again, way, way more doable than a 2-frame. So if there is, if there is any expansion for this song, besides something silly that I forgot to mention on the first act, and that while that, again, was done completely for convenience and execution, it does make ticks possible on that first act, which is hilarious. But given how hard and annoying that act is already, the few times that I've gotten a single tick, only one, is pairing that with the second and fifth act, good fucking luck. And even the solo, but I'll get to that. So yeah, that would be the most likely spot for expansion. as the extra 400 on the third act. But, you know, again, even for my extensive experience with these front ends at this point, I don't think I will ever go for 800. I mean, who knows, honestly, but that's how I'm feeling. Of course, that's how I'm fucking feeling right now, but that's what I foresee myself to be feeling in the future. Also, another thing you can do on the third act is delay the activation to the following red-yellow chord. In my opinion, that makes for better execution if you're going for the double squeeze, but the reason I didn't fuck with that, even on runs that I did go for the double squeeze, is just because that muscle memory and timing from the second and fifth act is so ingrained that, like, it was just better for me right now. So on to the solo act, which should be, well, the third act without doing the double is the freest, easily, but the solo act should be up there in terms of, you know, ease and freeness, quote unquote. But it took me a really long time to get any semblance of consistency out of it, and even with all the experience that I have with it at this point, it just did not cooperate enough to not drive me insane. Basically, there's a lot you have to keep track of on that act. The first is something that I'm just shit with on so many different songs. Overlapping, particularly Hopo front ends. Now, thankfully, you have a couple extra frames to play with, and you should actually try to activate a little bit earlier because of what I'll get into next, but yeah, it's still really fucking annoying front end. And of course, the back end is where things get real shitty. You want to have enough star power to comfortably get in that back end note and still be able to comfortably early whammy the following red sustain. And that is a really tall task. It requires, you know, it complicates the front end because you don't want to squeeze as hard as you can on that orange. And if you're not doing like some real thorough back end manipulation, you will overlap that phrase but so many times you'll make yourself sick. So what I ended up having to do is get really rigid timing on when I hit those back end notes early. I have to hold on to red. It's actually really similar to the Freya back end, except you don't have the luxury of tapping the red sustain, obviously. But yeah, so we hit those, do a descending quad, and then you have to hold on to that red, or else you'll it's twofold. You'll either overlap the phrase because it starts on the green hammer-on before green pull-off before the red sustain, or you will just miss the green entirely because you're pulling off too quickly. So yeah, you have to get a solid timing for holding that red at the end if you want consistency out of that act. I struggled for a very long time holding on to ticks because the execution at the end of that solo is so insane. Like I said, you have all that stuff going on, the early back end, holding the red, and then refretting basically as soon as you can, and then hitting, you know, going into the blue after and pulling off immediately to the green. And I even missed those notes after the green several times in this pace run. God, that hurt like a bitch. And to top it all off, you have to get that orange damn near perfectly. And that one, at the very least, the green you don't have to worry about whamming properly because it continues the whammy from the red sustain, but the orange is completely isolated and the timing resets, so you have to get a new whammy on that. Although that can be fudged, quote unquote, with the buffered first frame whammy mechanic, but again, as I've said in a couple of these videos, I don't know if that's even viable at all for human execution, but it's certainly not something that I'm willing to risk any of these runs on. So yeah, that's the fourth act and following phrase. Fifth act, not a ton to really say about it. I thought, well, I hoped that I would be able to find a more friendly execution method when I was just testing this out. And there kind of is one. You can, for some reason, activating on the following red-yellow reduces the frame window by 1. So obviously you can't really afford to throw away frames on an act like that, so I just kind of had to suck it up. But you can activate on the following yellow-blue, and that keeps the same, I believe it was 8 frame window. That 8 frames is with buffered whammy, so it's probably more like 5 to 6 total. And the reason I didn't switch to that, because that front end activation would, in theory be superior because you're already holding the yellow from the previous red-yellow chord. The reason I didn't switch up for that is twofold. The first reason is just out of, consistent muscle memory, like I said, with the third act. Even on runs I went for the third act double. But the other reason is more logical, more foundational, in that because you're squeezing those chords so hard, the following note after the activation front end is really easy to fuck up. And so while activating on the first chord, you're just shifting down to red, basically. You're already holding yellow from the previous chord. But if you go for that second chord, that second yellow-blue chord activation, you have to go all the way down to red and green. I didn't really practice the back-end timing for that act, and I definitely should have, but I eventually just started to get semi-comfortable with it. And that just leads us to the oh-so infamous last act. Good God, I cannot believe how much trouble this gave me. As you saw, I adjusted the last act back a measure, and the reason I did that is because the phrase after you get star power is at 204 tempo, and the following measure drops to 198. And again, this is something that I'm surprised the slow ear path doesn't account for, but moving that back a measure increased the activation frame window by 2, which is very substantial, and also why I can't believe it took this long to pull this off. I figured it just, it wouldn't have been that bad. But those nerves, man, that pressure, I will never forget that pressure that I felt on the first pace of this. It was just so intense. It felt like there was just a lead vest on me. Something that may be worth looking into if I ever, God forbid, decide to go for 800 or something, is moving the last act back to where it ends on the that blue hopo at the very end of the strumming. I didn't fuck with that because A, it took long enough to adjust my timing just to for this altered last act. B, it's the fucking last act and I don't need any more shit complicating it right now. And C, you would lose the tempo advantage, I believe, by moving the front end back any more measures. So while better in execution, probably it likely would lose a frame or two off the back. And again, it's just not something that I'm looking to that I was looking to do here. Another note on the first and last activations, obviously not the adjusted first act that I made here, but double squeezes are possible on those. I only tasked the last act. Well, no, that's not true. I tasked the first act, but I didn't get everything frame tight. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to see if it was possible after I had already done the last act thoroughly. And the last act double squeeze window is, I think it was 3 frames. Now, that is, those squeezes I would be very surprised if they were ever, I mean, I would be surprised to see them gotten in general, but yeah, I would be just over the wall if somebody, that's not even an expression, but if somebody implemented those into a run, because the strumming engine is just so fucked up. I don't need to say this. You saw the 1,000 outro chokes. I would assume the first act is at least a frame less lenient on the double squeeze, just because you don't have any kind of like tempo workarounds like you do on the last act. Oh, also the other big thing is they have whammy on them, so like, and trying to get frame perfect whammy on those front ends, that is another good fucking luck. That's why this 11 frame window was so hard to comfortably get here at the end of the run. So yeah, in summary, the total amount that I've been able to find is 442, 200, 212. If you're not doing the first act double and you use the adjusted act, there are at least, I mean, I'm sure there are multiple ticks, but I've gotten at least one. I've gotten one a few times, so yeah. And then it's just that third act double alongside it. I can't even imagine trying to go for second, third, and fifth all in a run. I mean, this was so fucking hard already. And that's, again, it's not even just like, oh, it's just one more activation. It's exponential, man. So I guess that's it. This is probably the farthest I'm going with this song. It would be insane if somebody were to beat this, but, you know, you can't underestimate the competition. And so I really wanted to get a hold of something that was hopefully going to last. I'm going to go eat some food, decompress, and yeah, still kind of feel that way. But we'll keep with tradition here. And I actually I actually didn't have to put in the unlock all code, so it could save. Thumbs up for that.